Hello, I'm Zash, and welcome to episode 18 of my Katawa Shoujo Let's Read. Joining me, as always, is my co-reader Faith. And we've had a bit of an eventful day. Hanako's not doing that well. And Lily has given us some advice. But should we take it? Hisao's gut feeling is telling him to do something different, but in the end, he does decide to do the right thing and listen to Lily. And this sets us upon the road to Hanako's good ending. So, like Faith, please enjoy. I don't want to admit it, but she may have a point. Something else bugs me, though. And you tried to amend this? Wait, our outing into the city?
Quite astute. I thought that it might help if I dragged both of you out of Yamaku and into the wider world. I am thankful you became closer for it, though.
So she noticed that. I suppose she may have well been paying attention to us, and her hearing's incredibly good. Quite likely good enough to have picked out what we were talking about if she tried. This sounds more and more like you were manipulating us. Silence. It's a harsh way of putting it, but I have no intentions of stepping back from those words.
I'm sorry. I was just worried about you.
It's fine. I guess there are more important things anyway. It's not a total surprise that she'd do such a thing. Her motherly nature can be slightly overbearing at times, but she does have the best of intentions. So, you think I should think about myself more instead of trying to cater to Hanako?
That largely sums it up. Again, I'm sorry for not telling you this in a clearer way before going behind your back. I know I am at least as guilty of being overprotective of Hanako as you, but I fear that you're neglecting yourself in your efforts to give Hanako happiness.
Do you really think Hanako will be okay?
She isn't as fragile as you think. I don't know exactly what experiences she's lived through, or what feelings she has in her mind, but she's managed to work her way through them until now. It's also my hope that giving her a little space will allow her to decide what she truly wants for herself, and give her the initiative to reach out for it. Please have faith in Hanako. That's all I ask.
Oh, I guess I'll think about it for a while.
That's good. Being rash won't get you anywhere. I know that at times you may doubt your relationship to Hanako, but she does.
Lily cuts herself off and takes a moment to reconsider her words.
Please keep in mind that I wouldn't have befriended you if I hadn't thought you a fundamentally good person. You're a good friend, both to myself and to Hanako.
Thank you. That helps. We share some small talk and try to lighten the atmosphere, but it feels very stilted. There's a lot I don't know about Lily's stay in Scotland, but after such a heavy subject, I want to be alone for a bit to think. After a few minutes, we end up saying our goodbyes, and I set my phone on the desk. Compared to Hanako's situation, mine feels utterly mundane. I still have both of my parents, I had a reasonably normal childhood, and unlike many in Yamaku, my condition isn't immediately visible to the public. But then again, isn't that just an attempt to justify the way I've been acting towards her? That may well be what our pasts were like, but when it comes to the future, I still have no idea what I want to do. In school, I've just concentrated on each day's work, and I've put off more and more things to cater to Hanako. I recall the words Muto told me after Hanako's breakdown, about the purpose of Yamaku and my education. In hindsight, he was probably trying to push the exact same thing. Just what have I been doing in the time since my heart attack? If I ever did manage to get Hanako out of her room and open up, What then? I look out of my dormitory window as the sun slowly sets. It's a nice night, but what I really savor is the quiet as the students return to their dormitory rooms. All I want to do now is think. I'm not sure how much time I have, but I want to work out where I'll go from here. Since talking to Lily yesterday, I've wanted to try to move on from the listlessness that I felt ever since coming to Yamaku. But even if I try to concentrate on the book in front of me, Hanako's empty seat at the back of the classroom looms larger than life. Every time I start getting focused, my eyes flick over to her desk again, and my mind starts spinning. Once more my eyes drift over to it, but this time my vision is blocked by a certain other classmate. Oh, hey Mickey.
Maybe you should just have lunch. I can hear your stomach growling from my desk.
I let my head drop in disappointment. She seems to have taken some amusement from my reaction, and hops up onto my desk. Her grin as she sits on it reminds me of the Cheshire Cat.
So, what you working on?
Some math. I have a decent handle on it, but I just wanted to revise.
Oh really? Let me see that.
Before I can object, she grabs my mathematics book with her hand. She scans the page I was on, holding it open with the one hand she has, her left arm sitting uselessly on her lap. In my time here at Yamaku, I've noticed that the other students have a wide range of adjustments to their disabilities, on a purely practical level. Mickey is one of those who seem to have had some trouble. The stump of her left arm tends to be either hanging by her side, slipped into a pocket, or otherwise put out of the way. Sometimes she has a difficult time doing common tasks, which makes her visibly quite frustrated. I feel a little bad for thinking this way, but I'm thankful that Hanako and I don't have disabilities affecting our freedom of movement to that extent. Then again, if Mickey's problems worsened, at least she wouldn't have a real possibility of dying. My attention is refocused as she thumbs through a few pages, skimming their contents. With such casual interest in the subject matter, it's clear by now that she won't be any help. I'm guessing you're not too interested in this stuff.
Screw math, it's boring as hell.
She puts the book back in front of me with indifference. Her eyes move to the notebook beside it that I'd been working out practice equations on.
Wait, you're actually able to work that stuff out?
Yeah?
Wow. I've never talked to a computer with legs before.
Thanks, I think. At least I'm doing better in this than history.
Think it's worth asking that librarian for help? I heard she's shooting for uni.
Yuko? Maybe. I don't know what she wants to study, though. So, what about you? Got anything you're thinking of doing after you graduate?
Me? Nah, not really. Just enjoying it while it lasts.
She looks a little awkward when asked about her future, and absent-mindedly rubs her left forearm. I kind of want to ask her about it, but I don't think I know her well enough to do so. The conversation peters out, and I lean back in my chair, giving up on the prospect of studying. Mickey notices my tired expression and looks oddly serious.
Thinking about Hanako?
It's that obvious?
You've been glancing at her seat, and you've been pretty quiet. Not too hard to connect the dots.
I'm just worried about her.
Yeah, I can see why you would be. She can get weird sometimes.
She sounds put off, but I can't blame her. Hanako was a hard person to interact with before she warmed up to me, even with Lily around to help. I haven't known her for that long either, so some of her habits would be unknown to me. My face becomes troubled. If I hadn't developed feelings for her, this would be at least a little easier to deal with.
I mean, No offense. She isn't a bad person, I know that much.
I know. I didn't take it that way. It's just harder to deal with when, well, you know, you have feelings for someone.
Yeah, I can imagine that. It's hard to forget something like what happened to her during class, too.
I wish she hadn't reminded me of that. She just confirmed that it was clearly noticed by the others in the room as well.
Come on, don't get that down. She's done this before, you just gotta wait it out.
She locks herself in her room and acts like an empty husk of a person for a sizable amount of time, ever since she entered Yamaku, if not before then as well, and I'm not supposed to be concerned about that? Well, I might think that, but there's nothing that I can do. I can't force her to come out, and she does see a therapist, so it's not like she isn't getting any help for her issues. Maybe it's natural to think that way when you're so powerless to help someone. That's just the way she is, and you just have to deal with it. As I mull things over, I notice a movement out of the corner of my eye. I glance to see who it is, and end up doing a double take. Sure enough, it's Hanako. She walks through the door just as she would any normal school day, and begins to move towards her seat in her usual silent and humble manner. She looks at me for a moment before blushing and looking away in embarrassment, which makes me realize that I was staring at her. I feel sorry for that, but not doing it is hard after all that's happened. The girl sitting on my desk looks to me, grinning.
See? Your sweetheart's back already. What'd I tell ya?
You be quiet. It might only be meant as a joke, but she hits close enough to make me quite uncomfortable. As we talk, someone calls Mickey's name from the door. She jumps down from her vantage point on my desk before turning to me.
Gotta go, Sal. Remember to eat sometime, will ya?
Fine, I will. See ya. She gives a casual salute before jogging over to the door, where a male student in gym uniform is waiting for her. Probably someone from the track and field club. Seizing the opportunity, I get up and make my way to Hanako's desk.
Hello.
Hi, Hanako. What's up?
Nothing.
Maybe talking to her this soon after she came back to class was a bad move. Want to come with me and grab something from the cafeteria? I'm pretty hungry.
But I thought you were studying.
Studying can wait. Turning up for class after all this time must have taken some courage for Hanako. So the least I can do is stay with her. That's just the way she is, and you have to deal with it. It's the way Miki, and probably the class as a whole, views Hanako. I can do more for her, though. I want to do more for her. After being distracted by Miki, I don't think I can get any work done. Come on, let's go. She hesitates, but eventually gets up and joins me as we begin walking. These may be small steps for her, but the fact that she's finally out of her room on her own volition lifts a large weight off my shoulders. My pen busily scrawls out onto a slowly filling page of my notebook. My other hand remains on the page of a reference book I borrowed from the library, marking my spot as my eyes flicker to and fro. As I work, I occasionally mark red circles or underlines on the photocopied sheets of paper that is on the table in front of me. Wanting a change of scenery from the library, and to avoid the distractions of the classroom, I decided to make use of the Shanghai for some quiet study time. It ended up being nice and quiet as expected, and being able to get a coffee while I study is a nice bonus. Hanako may have returned to her normal self since she came out of her room, but I've done quite the opposite. Daily routine may have returned to us, but I feel as if I'm a different person. Maybe I'm not. It's only been a few days, after all, since I decided I wanted to try and get out of the rut I had found myself in after my accident. But I want to change, and I'm now actually working towards that goal. Or at least I would like to think that I am. This is impossible. Brute forcing this isn't going to work. What's more, I have another piece of writing I have to do after this. I fear that's going to be no easier. I look up in surprise to the source of the tentative voice. Yuko stands at the head of the table with a damp towel in hand, clearly having taken the opportunity to clean the tables while no other patrons were around. She looks curious, her eyes as much on my work as on me. What's the matter?
I was just wondering, what sort of work are you having so much trouble with?
Oh, it's just history. I'm fine with science and math, so I'm trying to get my other subjects up to par. Yuko looks positively delighted at this development. I feel like I chose the right answer on some big quiz show.
Oh, I think I can help you with that. If you don't mind, of course.
I briefly considered turning down the offer in order to not cause her too much trouble, but she looks too excited about it for me to do it. It would be so mean to shoot her down like that after such a reaction. If you're willing to help, I'd really appreciate it. She claps her hands together and quickly deposits her towel on the counter before returning and taking the seat across from me. I take my notebook off the top of the textbook and hand it over for her to peruse.
So you're studying the Edo period?
Yeah, I'm not really good at this though. She takes the textbook and reads a few pages from a random section near the middle for a bit, but the aura of enthusiasm she'd been radiating previously is rapidly slipping away. I'm guessing this isn't the kind of history you were expecting?
Unfortunately not. My main area is European history, especially in the classical era. Sorry.
She looks a bit downcast, but as she carefully closes the book and lays it back down on the table, her face perks up again.
Would you like another cup of coffee?
Oh, yeah, sure. I reach forward and get my book back as Yuko gets up, takes my mug, and slowly walks to the counter to make another brew. As usual, she is absolutely silent as she does this. Every ounce of her concentration is focused on not tripping over or dropping the plain white mug. I take the opportunity to lay back and relax for a bit, the hum of the coffee machine filling the otherwise quiet air. It's small details like that which make me realize how much I've come to appreciate the little things in life. The peace and quiet of the local town, the discipline and order of Yamaku, the green of the trees that were so rare in my home city, the relaxed pace which the aging residents live their lives. Everything feels so certain. It's comforting. I can feel myself beginning to nod off when the sound of a mug coming to rest on the table grabs my attention. Seems like it arrived not a moment too soon. Yuko takes her previous seat once again as I pick myself up and bring a hand around the mug to check its temperature. It's just a little too hot to drink right away, so I blow on it a little.
It's a shame you don't like history all that much. I sort of guessed you might be more into science.
How so?
You've nearly read out the science fiction section of the library already. It wasn't hard to notice.
You do have a good point there. Well, what can I say? You've pegged me just about right. You sound like you really take an interest in history, though, especially considering how specific you are about it. Do you study that area or something? Go on digs overseas? She giggles nervously at the thought.
I'd like to visit the Mediterranean sometime and see the old architecture and art for myself, but I don't think I could trust myself to handle such delicate things. I'm saving up to formally study it in university, although I also read up on it whenever I have free time outside of work.
So Miki was right about her university aspirations. Considering how she fares as a waitress, a more theoretical path may suit Yuko better. It's nice to hear that she has some ambitions though, considering how hard she works. I nod and take a careful sip of my coffee. Right now it's cooled to the right temperature, so I begin to drink while keeping an eye on the book below, trying to read it at the same time. A few minutes pass quietly, Yuko looking out the window and watching the world go by, while I have my coffee and study. A movement catches my eye as I look up to see Yuko smiling and waving to someone outside. Following her gaze surprisingly reveals that someone to be Hanako. She is looking at us from the side of the street across from where we are. Her usual all too visible timidity is largely absent, probably thanks to there being so few people around right now. Evidently, she decides to join us after a little wave. She gives a quick glance up and down the street and crosses towards the side that the cafe's on. The familiar doorbell to the Shanghai rings out as Hanako enters and makes her way to the table we're sitting at.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Hi, Hanako. What's up?
Nothing. Just going for a walk, since the weather was nice.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I'm glad I decided to study here instead of the library. It's comfortable in here, thanks to that. Better than the sometimes quite stuffy library. I look to Yuko, who nods in response.
It's nice. It's just a shame that summer can't last forever. Oh, hey, sorry, would you like a drink?
Hanako shakes her head. Thankfully, it's enough to calm Yuko back down.
How are you going with studying?
Okay-ish. Oh yeah, have you talked with Lily?
I'm interested too. How is she doing? She's enjoying it, I think.
I think that's all we're gonna get out of her. Being around Yuko is tensing her up.
It would be so nice to travel to Scotland. Green fields, castles, lovely small towns, men in kilts, interesting history.
I can't say I see the appeal of men in kilts myself. It does seem like a picturesque place, though. As we talk, the jingle of the doorbell rings again. Hanako is startled, noticing Yuko's panicked expression at the prospect that she might leave customers to wait a handful of seconds due to her chatter with us.
Yuko gives us a quick bow and hastily skitters over and greets the new customers, an elderly man and his wife.
I watch for a bit, craning my head around to get a good view. Hanako is staring at me with her one visible eye.
She averts her head in embarrassment as I turn to make eye contact.
I was just thinking that it's nice to have ambitions for the future. Yuko was telling me a little about her university aspirations before.
Oh.
It's a shame. If she wasn't so neurotic and overworked, I think she would be a really happy person. As much as I'd like to play host to Hanako and entertain her a bit, I do need to study as well. To be honest, I don't think the distraction from Yuko helped either. Sorry if I'm a bit distracted. I need to try and get this done, otherwise I'm going to flunk the history exams pretty hard. I'm left running my hand through my hair in frustration. That letter needs doing as well, once I get back to my dormitory room. I hope I have more luck with that than this. Damn.
What with?
I was going to write to Hanako. Right now, though, this is more important. All I've done is settle myself. I can't focus on the work in front of me when my stomach is slowly turning about the prospect of actually attempting to write her back after all this time. I force myself to concentrate on the book, picking up my pen once I have a quick sip of coffee. After a few seconds, Hanako stops silently watching me and leans back in her seat, relaxing as much as she ever seems to be able to, looking out the window to pass the time. We stayed like this for a long time before leaving for the dormitories together. I'm surprised she had the patience to wait me out. Hanako's letter lays on my desk beside a blank sheet of lined paper and an unused envelope. The tapping of my pen is the only thing to be heard this late at night. As I feared, my second task for the day turns out to be just as difficult as the first, if not harder. It's been so many months since we even saw each other. Even so, I can remember what she looked like, what she sounded like, and what she acted like. By now, though, the little details are beginning to slip away. When I first saw her letter, I barely recognized her handwriting at all. Even the pink pen she always used was forgotten until her writing reminded me of it. I wonder why she didn't use it for the letter. She used to write everything with it. Maybe she thinks it's too immature now. I should be thinking about myself and what I want to communicate to her. My mind can't stop concentrating on her, though. On the past we shared before it was taken away so suddenly. The bright and slightly garish decorations suit her sense of aesthetics. Picking up the letter to take a closer look at it, I give a long sigh. This is the last link binding me to my past. Hanako didn't suddenly cease to exist when she left my hospital room for the last time, but I needed this letter to remind me of that. I had all those feelings neatly filed away. I felt as if I didn't need them, that I could just begin life completely anew. It was easier that way. In the end, I suppose that was a rather naive thing to think. Sooner or later, my past would have caught up with me, one way or the other. But what am I supposed to say to her? Thank you for bringing me closure? All the letter did was end the sense of closure I'd previously felt. Try as I might, I can't write so much as a single word down on the paper in front of me. I can't even think of what exactly I want to say. Putting the letter down on top of the blank sheet, I gathered the materials together and filed them away in my drawer. The clunk the desk makes as it closes makes me momentarily tense in frustration before I get up to go grab a drink from the vending machine on the first floor. I tried, but I couldn't do it. After all the time that's passed, I still don't know how to deal with Hanako. The library, while not humming with activity, is noticeably more busy than usual. Exams are not far away, and that's reflected in the number of students burying their noses in textbooks at the tables around us. I've been studying quite a lot in the past few days, just like them, in hopes of doing well in the exams. This also means that Hanako and I have been playing games less, so she's begun studying as well, just to fill in the time. Nevertheless, I found myself forsaken by her on this particular day. The textbook in front of me has remained on the same page for some time. After so much reading on subjects I couldn't care less about if not for the exams, my mind is beginning to wander. I find my eyes flicking over to where Hanako would usually be, just like on the days she wasn't in class. Her usual beanbag in the corner of the room is conspicuously unoccupied. It was here that we first really met. I tried to start a conversation with her. She got skittish and eventually bolted from the room altogether. I probably shouldn't smile about that, but it was kind of amusing in hindsight. Nowadays, it's more and more difficult to imagine her doing such a thing. Even with Lily gone, she's been doing well now that she's come out of her room. I want to talk with her, or at least play another game of chess. I'm tired of studying, and it's been a few days since we've really done anything together. The question of where to find Hanako isn't a particularly difficult one. If she's not in the library, chances are she's either up in the tea room for some peace and quiet, or in her dormitory room. Deciding to check them in that order, I pack up my books and make my way out of the library. I stretch and give a loud groan as I walk down the hallway. Studying may be frustrating at times, but with the progress I feel I've made, there's also some sense and pride in getting it done. It's a good feeling. There isn't a sound to be heard from inside as I stand in front of the door to Hanako's room. I guess that really isn't indicative of whether she's inside or not, given how quiet she usually is. Still, she wasn't in the tea room. I try knocking lightly to make my presence known, but I'm surprised when I find her door unlocked and yielding at my touch. With a small creak, the door opens. It looks like my suspicions were correct. Hanako is indeed here. She's sitting at the table with an open book in front of her, but pays it no heed as she keeps looking out the window. She looks utterly oblivious to my presence. With her head thoughtfully resting on her hand, she looks calm and collected. It's a shame she can't look this way more often. Smiling a little, I walk up to the table and softly speak to her. "Good evening, Hanako." Hanako's head turns a little to see me, but she's still only half there. I put a hand on the table and lower my head to better look at her face. I'll be curious about what mood she's in. "What's up?" She gasps a little, finally acknowledging my presence in the room for the first time. Hanako's blushing really heavily. Her mouth is open just a little, as if paused mid-sentence. Most striking, though, is what she's doing. She's looking directly at me. Her eyes are pinned on my own, from such a close distance that I can almost see my reflection in them. They don't turn away, nor move at all. They're absolutely still, just looking into mine. They're dark, and give her an almost analytical air. Even when reading on subjects she has no interest in, she would appear to be wrapped in her work to a casual observer. She absorbs information very well, and even now I can feel that. I feel like I'm seeing something behind those eyes that I never saw before. I don't know what it is, though. "Hanako?" Her lips move just a little, silently mouthing something. She looks like she's on the verge of saying something, but won't say it. But that's the way Hanako always is. On the verge of saying something, but never quite doing it. As I look intently into her eyes, I realize something. Everyone has their own thoughts, things they want to say, their own worldview. But I can't work out what Hanako wants to say. And I can't work out what she's thinking. I have never been able to. It's frustrating. It feels like I don't know her at all, despite all the time we've spent together.
So?
It's only now that I find myself blushing. I've been looking directly into Hanako's eyes from such a short distance, with absolutely no regard for her, and she's been looking into mine without shrinking away. I quickly look away while covering my face with my hand. Hanako does just the same. Another awkward silence reigns. I hate these. At first I accepted them as just being a fact of life around Hanako, but now they feel like an affirmation of how little we're able to communicate. Some anger makes its way into the complex mixture of emotions I'm experiencing right now. I want to bridge that gap between us. Friends shouldn't have to tiptoe around each other like this. I speak before I can talk myself out of what I'm going to do. My scarring isn't as bad as Hanako's, and I can't possibly compare my life to hers. But I want to show her that she's not alone. Doing this in such a blunt manner might be the only way I can get my point across. "Hanako, I want to show you something." I take a deep breath to prepare myself. This could backfire badly, but I feel as if we've come close enough for this to be okay. I'm not going to strip naked or anything weird. I'm just going to take off my shirt. Hanako's eyes grow to the size of saucers. Her face is an amusing mixture of curiosity and nervousness as she stands. It helps take the edge off my own nervousness at doing this in front of another person. Slowly,
With my entire body feeling tense, I unknot my tie and begin to loose the first of the buttons. I'm trying to mentally block out Hanako to make this easier, but it's not really working. As I work my way down, I expect some form of protest from her. She remains silent though, which just makes this feel even stranger. With the last of my shirt unbuttoned, I take a breath and look at her.
Hanako's gaze is fixed on my scarring, as expected, and once I nod to say it's okay, she steps forward and tentatively places her hand on the vertical line running down my chest. The scarring on her hand, a pattern of damaged skin across the surface, contrasts with the single uniform line that makes up mine. Her hand isn't trembling at all, unlike what I predicted.
This is...
The scar from my surgery that followed my heart attack. The surgeons had to cut open my chest to operate on my heart.
I never knew.
Hanako's words are calmer and softer than usual. The soft feeling of her fingers moving from my scar to my breast make me hesitate a little before continuing on. You're the first person to see this since I left the hospital.
But why are you showing this to me?
I wanted to prove to myself that I could do this, that I could accept my past and move on. I wanted to show that to you as well. She nods. From her reaction, she seems to know how difficult this is for me. More than anything, this scar represents a visible reminder of my condition, a reminder that I'm not normal anymore. That's something that, until now, I tried my hardest to ignore. As the minutes tick by, Hanako's gaze lingers. Her eyes look less focused on my scarring than before. The situation feels a bit different than it previously did, and it makes me feel slightly uncomfortable. Her hand retreats, and I draw my shirt close and begin to button it up. Her blushing face suddenly returns to its typical tense and timid state as she looks away. The room is completely silent as I fix the shirt and tie, feeling put off after such an unexpectedly intimate moment. So, I guess you're not the only one that's scarred. Hanako smiles a little at the joke, thankfully lightening the atmosphere a bit.
Thank you. So, I think I understand.
I give a long sigh of relief. I really didn't know how she'd take it, but I'm glad everything seems to have worked out as I hoped. Hanako's smile only proves that further. I'm finding the path I want to follow now, and what Hanako needs to do is find her own. It's something I can't help her with, and it's something that she needs to overcome her past in order to do. Hanako checks her watch. It's getting late by now.
So,
Yeah, I'd better be going. I'll be thankful for some sleep. It's been a long day after all. Good night, Hanako.
good night.
I make my way out of her room and into the hallway, remaining silent as I do so. I think both of us have gone through a few emotions today.